What's going on, everyone? Perosion here with a rundown of a game that just had a playtest go live recently, and that is The Lift. I normally wouldn't cover a game so far from its release, but after finishing what the playtest had to offer and seeing some of the potential it has, I felt compelled to talk about the experience as a whole, where it worked, where it didn't, and hopefully be able to present you with enough information to decide if it's worth keeping on your radar or even checking out the playtest for yourself. So with that, let's jump into a quick overview of what the game is even about and work our way from there. The Lift is a first-person immersive sim game where you play as a handyman tasked with renovating a massive research facility abandoned after a mysterious incident. Inspired by Soviet sci-fi and the SCP Foundation, The Lift prides itself on being an eerie, atmospheric game, although much of what you will be doing is reminiscent of games like Escape Simulator or the trivial chore-based games like Power Wash Simulator, which I say not as a critique because Power Wash Simulator oozes charm and is easy to spend way too much time in. Where The Lift tries to set itself apart, aside from the ambiance, is in its story, which says a lot because you are told that the decisions you make are more important than what is happening around you, which creates a disconnect that does a good job of keeping the uneasiness and tension high as you play. You will pick up pieces of lore here and there, but you can choose to ignore the stories if you desire, like in the post office where there's a whole section about an award and a sandwich, but you really only need to know the combination of numbers to enter to unlock a door, which can be fully done without having to learn about the ludicrous backstory. The consequences of either soaking up the information or glossing over it remains to be seen, but it is something I would like to see unfold. Now what you will be doing as all this unfolds is sort of akin to playing an escape room by needing to solve various puzzles in order to turn on the power to help fill up a bar at the top of the screen referred to as a wave gauge, which is sort of a methodology used to determine functionality with the rooms. Fixing broken benches, replacing light bulbs, fixing various machinery and electrical connections are all ways to improve the wave gauge of a room, and once you hit a certain threshold you are able to proceed, with the playtest showing you two specific examples of how this works. So with all that being covered, I think I want to start off with what The Lift does right before covering my complaints and final thoughts. Firstly, the ambiance created by the game is astounding. I tend to get really engaged with the games that I play, and I maybe overreact at things like the very predictable bats coming out of a cave and Sons of the Forest, so maybe I'm more susceptible to these sort of things than the average gamer, but I think the environment and vagueness that surrounds the experience is enough to keep you on your toes and wonder about what actually happened, and if there's some unknown entity wandering around that you may bump into later. The cast of characters you meet really helps solidify this eerie outlook on things, as whatever happened has profoundly impacted those who remain.
We, for instance, have some important matter for you to sort out before you fall asleep again, because, well, you do love to sleep, yes, that much we've noticed.
I think the puzzles and tasks presented to you are really well done, especially the discovering of the codes for the various boxes in the post office, because you really only need to open up one of those boxes, with the rest really just being bonuses that makes things easier for you. But the drive to find those numbers and piece together some of what happened is a really nice touch. I also discovered fairly early on that you're going to sometimes need to do a rob Peter to pay Paul sort of work at times, or at least I found that that's a good method to be able to solve one puzzle before moving on to the next one, as you're rather limited to what tools you may have access to, or at least have the ability to create with your workshop or purchase through a vending machine. With all that being said, there were a handful of points of frustration during my time with the playtest, and I will say that a good deal of them are minor, like the performance of the playtest itself. Now, I get it, it's a playtest. It's obviously going to have a few hiccups, and I'm not one to usually complain about a frame drop here or there, but the chugging that sometimes presented itself was abundant enough to at least warrant bringing it up. The game did seem to perform more smoothly the longer I played, especially when comparing the start of the playtest to the optional portion of the post office. Another point of contention I had was the fact that there was sometimes a lack of direction. It seems obvious that a game about solving puzzles shouldn't need to hold your hand, but I felt like there was an interesting choice made in what was and wasn't being shown to you. For example, the first time you're given a task to increase your wave gauge, you aren't even told what that is and how to do it. But once you figure it out and move to the post office, you're then given a pop-up explaining all you need to know, which seems a bit counterintuitive given that you just had to teach yourself. Also, maybe this one was just me, but I spent a significant amount of time trying to figure out where the workstation was located. I assumed everything was going to be within the floor presented to me, and after doing everything I could, including checking the map of the floor, I had come to the realization that it was on the lift where I originally came from. Again, this could just be a me issue, but I wish in my little notepad that I had, it had a comment saying something like, "Proceed to the workstation on the lift," and it would have prevented me from wandering around aimlessly. In the end, my time with the lift was good enough that even through my complaint revolving around sometimes having a lack of direction, there wasn't enough to dissuade me from looking forward to the full release. While it didn't do anything to absolutely wow me, it did do enough to show me that there was a lot on offer, and as more and more clones of popular games get released, it is a nice breath of fresh air to see something that's a little bit different. The playtest should still be going on at the time this video releases, and as long as you don't get stuck like I did, it should only take you about an hour or so to complete it, so make sure you're checking it out if you want to experience some of the puzzles for yourself. But with that, that'll be it for this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, be kind to one another. Shoutouts go to Relativity, Naughty Dog is King, Chaos, and Kamikolo alongside all those subbed to the channel. Let me know what you thought of this somewhat different style of video down below, but either way, I will see you soon.